So we've been talking a lot about insects. Now we're going to talk about how insects help the environment. Yesterday we talked about worms that help the earth. Now we're going to talk about insects that visit flowers and help them make seeds and fruit. You just watched a couple of videos about pollination. Now we're going to read a book, How and Why Insects Visit Flowers by Elaine Pascoe, photographs by Dwight Kuhn. A butterfly has landed on a flower. It is searching for nectar, a sweet liquid in the flower center. What's it going to do with the nectar, do you remember? Yeah, it's food. The butterfly is a yellow tiger swallowtail. Nectar is its main food. The butterfly pushes its long tongue deep into the flower to drink. Remember what that long tongue is called? Proboscis. Ants and bees come to flowers to get nectar too. These insects do not know it, but they help the plants they visit. As the insects search for food, they are dusted with a powdery yellow pollen. They carry grains of pollen from one flower to the next. This allows the flowers to form fruits and seeds. A plant needs pollen to make fruits and seeds, but it can't use its own pollen. It's got to get pollen from someplace else. Isn't that interesting? A flower is a bee magnet. Its scent, or smell, and color attract bees and other insects. To a bee, flowers glow with colors you cannot see. Isn't it amazing to think that they can see things that we can't? A red flower may seem blue or purple to a bee. The flower looks different to the bee because the bee can see ultraviolet light. People cannot see this type of light. A bumblebee gathers pollen as well as nectar when it visits flowers. The bee collects nectar in its crop near its stomach. It collects pollen, do you remember where? On what part of its body? Yeah, its back legs. Brushy hairs on each hind leg form a sort of pollen remember what that was called? A pollen basket. When the pollen baskets are full, the bee flies back to its nest. At the nest, the bumblebee shares the nectar and pollen with other members of its colony. Bees store extra pollen and nectar in little wax chambers called honeypots. The store of food is very important. It will be eaten by whom, do you remember? By the young bees as they develop into adults. So you've seen some videos and we just read a book about pollination. Now I'm going to ask you to do an activity about this. These are the different steps that go into a flower being pollinated, but they're not in the right order. Let's look at them. The bee goes to the flower to get nectar. There's a picture of the bee and the flower it's going to. Then another step. The next flower gets the pollen and makes seeds and fruits. Here's a picture of the flower with a big old fruit here. What is that? That's a yummy looking orange, isn't it? Here's another step. The flower makes a yellow powder called pollen. See the yellow pollen in the middle of the flower there? And then another step. The pollen sticks to the bee's legs and it takes it to the next flower. And here we have the bee with its pollen baskets getting full. It's flying to the next flower. These are the steps of pollination, but they're not in the right order. That's why they're not numbered. So here's what you have to do. In your journal, you're going to write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's 4 steps here. And you're going to put these in the right order. But you do not have to write all these sentences. There will be a lot to write, and your parents might end up doing that writing, and they don't need this for homework. Instead, you're going to put the pictures in order. You can all draw flowers and bees. I know you can. So I want you to take a look here at all these steps. Which is the first thing that has to happen in order for a flower to finally get pollen and make the fruit and the seeds? What's the first thing that has to happen? Is the bee going to fly to the flower? Is the flower going to make fruit? Is the flower going to make pollen? Or is the bee going to carry pollen? What's the first thing that has to happen? We'll do the first one together. Oh, yeah, it's this one. The flower has to make the yellow powder called pollen. If it doesn't make the pollen, the bee can't move pollen from one flower to another. So this is going to be your first step in pollination. So in your journal, you write a number 1, and next to that, you're going to draw a picture of a flower with a yellow pollen in it. It doesn't have to be exactly like this one, but this is a good example because you can really see the pollen. Sometimes the pollen is stuck down inside the plant and you can't see it as well. And if you have crayons or colored pencils, it would be great to color that really bright yellow. So that's the first one. That's the number 1. Then you're going to figure out what comes next, number 2, and draw a picture of that. What comes next, number 3, and draw a picture of that. And which of these is last? What's the last step in pollination? And draw a picture of that. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 in your journal with 4 pictures. And do pictures similar to this so I can tell what you're trying to show me in the picture. If you want to write something down, you certainly may. I'm just not saying that you have to because it's a lot. But if you do good illustrations, I'll be able to tell what you're trying to say. Remember, these are not in the right order here. I purposely mixed them up. We know which one is first. Then you have to figure out the other 3. Good luck with that. When you're done, take a picture of it and put it in your portfolio. Yep, I'll see you next time for more bugs.